Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Hassan Iqbal, Chairman of the session, and the Chief Guest, Dr. Adia Khan, Dr. Khalid Riaz, Dr. Shahnaz Khan, Mr. Azhar Salim, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to begin by thanking the Human Development Foundation for two reasons. First, by giving me this opportunity to share my views on a very important issue, and that is despite my several failings and not being as regular in attending their very noble and very valuable activities as I should have been. So thank you, HDF, for not giving up on me. And Mr. Chairman, second reason I wish to thank HDF is for its timely focus on the question of governance reflected in the theme of this conference. Despite several efforts to confuse the intended and unintended poor governance in the country with ideological questions and the need for constitutional reforms, the debate on the quality of governance is out in the open with all its intensity and seriousness. Despite many other challenges and serious issues which the society is facing today, the spotlight is not moving away from the question of governance, rather quality of governance. People of Pakistan have been tricked into ideological debates, and we have been pitted against external and internal enemies, both real and perceived. The question of national security has come up time and again, and nobody can belittle the importance of national security in its right mind. But there have been regimes which have used the cloak of national security to hide their poor governance, to hide their corruption, and hide their bad performance. And national security has therefore been used as a pretext for continuing a bad governance in the society. We have also seen ideological struggles between right and left, and that has also been used at times to hide the poor performance and poor governance. Because if it is a poor governance, it is a poor governance of my party, and it has to be defended. That had been the slogan, that had been the mindset. We have also seen that we have been into the romance of charismatic personalities in politics and other spheres of society. And that has also taken our minds away from the basic issues of governance. We have been too involved in this romantic questions and right kind of questions. We have also been, at times, involved in the myth of autocratic efficiency, and people were led to believe that democracies are inefficient, democracies are unable to deliver, democracies are slow, and therefore let's try autocratic regimes which work very efficiently, which deliver. And we have tried this also, and that myth today stands broken. Now, Mr. Chairman, people have started asking the right kind of questions. They rightly ask the question. They do not ask which ideological camp you belong. They rightly ask the questions of how many ministers do we have in the cabinet? How much has been spent on the presidency? How much has been spent on the Prime Minister's house? Why my house does not have electricity while there is uninterrupted electricity to the offices of the ministers? Why trains are running late? Why there is no road? Why there is no drinking water? These are the kind of questions which society has started asking. So these are the right kind of questions. Not that there is no more focus on these ideological debates. Not that there is no more these questions of right and left. But I think dominating, overwhelmingly, now the focus is on right and wrong rather than right and left. And this is a very welcome sign. So therefore, HDF is very timely picked up the subject of governance, and let us keep this focus on governance on. Let's not lose this focus. Let's strengthen this focus on governance, and let's encourage people to ask all these right type of questions. We have an almost ideal enabling environment. We have an independent and assertive judiciary. Rightly, Mr. Ahmed Iqbal pointed out, restored through the struggle of civil society and people at large. We have a media which is not only independent, which is very enthusiastic, which is fearless, and this is providing a very almost rare opportunity for us to point out the flaws of governance, the poor governance, and what governance is doing in the country. But the real heroes are those brave men and women who are out on the streets risking their life, risking their personal safety, risking their dignity to ask these questions which I have just pointed out. But Mr. Ahmed Iqbal very rightly, I think, again pointed out that governance is not really a very limited or very isolated question. It's a societal question. It's a very wide issue. It's a question of culture and values too. We have seen individuals always being worshipped, if I may use the word, in our setup, in our governments, in our political parties, in our institutions, and so is the case with civil society organizations. All institutions basically, and literally so in the case of Pakistan, lengthen shadow of one individual, or maybe at best two individuals. Government is, of course, the most relevant institution or most relevant entity when we are talking about governance, or when we are debating about the issues of governance. The corporate sector needs good governance. Media needs good governance. Political parties, of course, need governance. The debate is on the governance of political parties, especially after the passage of 18th Amendment. And of course, civil society organizations must have good governance, and that's a very relevant question. And I must confess, being a member of the civil society, that despite civil society organizations' tremendous sacrifices and achievements over a period of time, a lot needs to change and improve in civil society organizations as well. I know I'm venturing into a minefield by trying to define civil society, but I will try to do that because there are as many definitions of civil society as people who are speaking on the subject. But a more common definition of civil society is a society less the government and less the commercial sector. So if you take these two out, subtract these two entities, the government and the business out, rest is all civil society. Are political parties part of the civil society? An overwhelming majority of people think it is. Is media a part of the civil society? As long as it is not commercial enterprise, it is part of the civil society. And a major part of civil society which we generally believe, which we generally perceive to be civil society these days, and that is what we really point out as civil society, is the non-profit sector, or the NPOs. And that is really the focus of civil society organizations as I speak today. Next, please. What kind of civil society organizations exist? I think numerous. Some of them I've tried to list out. They are professional organizations of engineers, doctors, accountants, horticulturists, and name it, they are there. The workers' unions and workers' federations. The students' organizations and students' unions.